Hello everyone and welcome to the demonstration video for PowerPoint Chapter 1. Alright, so you should have a pretty good feel for the majority of the Microsoft applications at this point. The general navigation, especially with the ribbon. And I do like to try to end off the course with something both fun and also on the easier end. So PowerPoint is the perfect place to end off. Okay, so hopefully we have some fun with this. But in Chapter 1, we'll do some simple creating a presentation as well as editing them. I'll show you some simple tools to get started with a slideshow and tools to make it look somewhat pretty, as well as make sure your text and information is formatted appropriately. Alright, of course, if you want to follow along with the skills or you want to write down notes, I provide the skeleton notes here for you to download or print out. And you'll notice we don't have any downloads for this demonstration because we're going to start from scratch, just like how we always start with each chapter, each section. Okay, let's go ahead and I'm going to take it to the desktop and we're going to open up the PowerPoint application. So of course, if you have the application downloaded, you're going to go to wherever you find your apps. For us, it's the Start menu. And again, I have mine pinned here, but you could go ahead and look for PowerPoint. There we go. And it's going to be this orange symbol, circular, kind of looks like a graph with a P in it. Go ahead and start it up. Oh, it started up another window for me. Let me open up here. There we go. And just like how you see the setup, pretty much the same as you've seen with the other applications. Okay, just as a quick introduction of what PowerPoint is, it helps you make slideshows. If you've ever seen instructors give presentations with that slideshow, they have a clicker or a mouse that they click and it goes to the next slide showing you information or videos. That's what you could create with PowerPoint. So again, good for lectures, any kind of presentation format, like if you're giving a presentation to your peers, or sometimes, again, this is nice for pitching ideas to each other. You've probably seen on social media some of those like slideshow nights or presentation nights that friends do, in which they either present a random topic or they're trying to sway you to one side. This is what you can make with that. So you could have a lot of fun with this, and also very good skills, especially if you're in business applications or if you're pitching certain business ideas. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Again, of course, in your home area, you have an option to create a new file here. You could open one with your typical open folder. It still all works the same. We're just working with Microsoft PowerPoint files. And you'll notice we also have different layouts that you could already choose from, different themings. But we're going to start from scratch with the blank presentation. So go ahead and click on blank presentation. There we go. And this is what should appear when you start out a new presentation. Let's go ahead and save this first before we move on. So saving it, again, just the same as you did with Word, Excel, and so on. You could go to your File tab, then go to Save As, and again, I recommend putting it in the Browse and finding the file you want to download, save your presentation to. Okay, again, I put it in the downloads because it's easy for me to access for these demos. Of course, you could put it anywhere that deems necessary for you to organize. But let's go ahead. In the file name, we could still rename it as we want. So I'm going to call this Jasmine Ojeda Demo. Again, for your projects, make sure you're naming it accordingly. Then let's hit save. And now our file is saved. Again, we get the confirmation up here on your device in the folder that you designated. Okay. Let's go ahead and get started. So again, we have our typical ribbon, but there are some things we need to discuss when it comes to what's going on here. Let's just take a look at the central area right here where we have these boxes. So a big white box, and these boxes, click to add title and click to add subtitle. So this is a single slide. So Slideshow can have multiple slides that you flip through. And this part would be a single slide. It's blank because we haven't added any designs and such. Okay. Now these boxes here, those are called placeholders. And the reason why we call it placeholders is you could click into them and start adding text. So the text here is actually not what would be shown in the presentation. For example, I'll explain what this is on the left, but you'll notice a big white box here. That's a preview of how the slide would look if you present it. If you do want to test out how the presentation would look if you actually present this, I'm going to have you go ahead and click on the Slideshow tab. So again, this isn't exactly necessary, but good if you want to get some practice. Click on the Slideshow tab. And for this, I'm going to have you do from current slide. And I need to adjust something so that way it can hopefully be on this screen. We'll see. So you could do all the way on the left from current slide or from beginning. Hopefully it works on our end. There we go, it does work. And you'll notice you're just introduced to a glaring white screen because we haven't put anything in those placeholders. If you want to get out of this view, make sure you hit your escape key on the top left, or you could click. Notice it says the end of the slideshow, and you could click to exit. But you could also click on escape to immediately get here. Okay. But it isn't until I start typing in text into these placeholders where something will actually appear on the screen. So for instance, this placeholder is dedicated for a title, so I could just click into it. You see your insertion point blinking, and remember, keep this in mind, there's a box that you're working with. Okay, but you could start typing, so I could say my presentation. Oop, there we go. And if I want a subtitle, you just go down, click, and then I could also type things I like. And notice every time I click away, the box around it disappears. So the placeholders, when they're initially inserted, they stay visible, so you could easily click inside of it and include text. But once you include text, it then just shows you the preview of how the slide would look. Don't worry, if you still want to edit the text inside, you could just click over the text or where that box should be, and the box appears, and notice you could click your insertion point anywhere you would like. Same down here with the subtitles, I could click, there we go, and I could go ahead and edit anything here. You could click outside in the gray area, there we go, this blank area, to see a preview, and of course notice over here on the left, again we'll get to this, it shows you a preview of how it would look. And you could also present it, again, go to the Slideshow tab, hit from beginning, there we go. And look, now it's not just a white screen, it has the text in there. And when I click forwards, that's the only slide we have, so it says end of slideshow, click to exit, and I click again, and we're all good. Okay. So that's basically putting in text into your screen. The question is, okay, Miss Ojeda, I can't do a slideshow with just a title. I want to put more text. I want to put images. We'll get to that right now. So let's go to our home tab. There we go. So in your home tab, you'll notice a group right here called slides. This is where you will be managing different slide layouts that you will include. For example, there's a big button here called New Slide. I'm going to have you click on the drop down, and you'll notice different, there we go, different setups that you could use for your slides. Notice it'll show you the placeholders that it includes. So for example, the title slide is what we currently had. So it would bring up a new slide with that new setup, and you could include text. There's a title and content, which this is typically used when you want to get to those creating bullet points, adding images. Section headers are if you split your presentation into different parts, you can include a section header. And there's a lot more, such as to content, which basically it's like having bullet points on both sides, comparisons, and so on. So there's a lot to mess around with. For now, let's just do a title and content. So go ahead, remember, let me click out of here. Go to your home tab, click on the drop down for new slide, which is in the slides group, and go and select title and content. There we go. And now the screen before you is the new slide that you can edit, and you could type into each of these placeholders. So for example, the title up here, I could put in things I like. And the content down here, they're always formatted as bullet points. So once you click into it, notice it just starts it immediately for you. Even in the paragraph group up here in the home tab, it shows that it's going to do the bullet points. And so you could type, I like cats. I also like dogs. I like the color. Oh, let's keep it to animals. What animal do I like? I like bats. There we go. And when you're done, you can click away. Okay. So that's our new slide that we've included some information for. And you'll notice here on the left, now we have two boxes. One labeled 1 and the other labeled 2. This over here on the left is called your slide master. This will hold all of the slides that are currently in your presentation. And if there's a lot more that go past this pane, you would have to scroll up and down to look at each of the slides. You could go between each slide. So let's say if we want to go back to slide 1 to edit something, you'll just go to the slide master, click on the first slide, so the one labeled 1. And once you click on it, it shows on your screen here. If I want to go back to 2, I just click on 2. There we go. And it shows here. I could go ahead and do here. Let me go to 1 again, and let's add in a new slide. So let's go to our home tab, slides group, do the drop down for new slide, and I'm going to do title and content again. And notice wherever my slide I have chosen and I did a new slide, it'll add it after this. So let me also title this things I like, and maybe this one's going to be food. So I like pizza, I also like tacos. What's something I'm really craving? I like Wendy's Frosties. I forget how to spell Frosties, but I'm just going to put Wendy's Frosty. Okay. Perfect. And you could see here again, it just keeps on adding on with each of the slides that you're including. Notice when you hover over each one, it gives you a little sign for a little tooltip. It just shows the title that was given to the slide, whatever you put in the title placeholder. So this one says my presentation, the other says things I like, and so on. Okay. So that's some simple adding some slides and adding text into them. Now let's go ahead. One other thing you could do with the slide master, again, it's not just for selecting slides, it's managing and adding slides. It's also managing how the slides look. So for example, if we want to display the animals I like first, but the food I like next, then you could just kind of move these around like cards. So if we want to move 2 down to 3, you'll just select slide 2 here in the slide master, click and hold, and drag it down to 3. Make sure it shifts, and then it'll change the order. Okay. And same thing with if we ever want to delete a slide, you could always right click on one. There we go. And you have more options to choose from. You could delete a slide. If you like the formatting for one slide, you could duplicate it. You could even change the theme of the slide and so on. All right. So that's managing some slides. Let me go ahead and present this for now. So again, slideshow. I'm going to do from the beginning. So this will play the slide from the very beginning. There we go. And we have a nice little slideshow going, my presentation, things I like. When I click, it goes in the order of the slide master. So now it says, there we go, it shows the animals I like. When I click, it shows the foods I like. And when I click, it's done because we only have 3 slides. Let's go ahead and exit. Now, Usually slideshows are supposed to be informational. Again, we want to present some kind of information, whether that's for your benefit or just for fun. But it's kind of not so good to have a slideshow where it's just black and white. We do want to make it a little appealing. So there are ways in which you could edit different parts of your slide. Notice every time I select a placeholder, you'll see that a new tab shape format appears. We'll go over this in chapter 2. So just keep that in mind for now. There's a lot of other ways, very specific ways that you could edit placeholders and even the slide itself. But one of the quickest ways I'll show in this chapter and will help you with quickly making your slideshow look fabulous instantly is going to your design tab, and look, we have themes that we could choose from. You could hover over each theme up here. It'll give you the name of it in that little tooltip and that little sign, and it'll give you an idea of what your slideshow will look like if you select it. Right now it's only doing it for my title page. I could click to, there we go, my second slide, and I could select each theme, see what it would look like. And if you want to see more, you'll click on the drop down for themes, and there's a lot more you could choose from. Let me do this one, the parallax. Once you found one, go ahead and select it. And notice the theme is applied to all of the slides in your slideshow. So be careful. Unfortunately, you can't really apply a theme to just individual slides. I'm pretty sure there is a way, but it is going to be very tedious. But just know every time you apply a theme from here, it's going to apply to everything. Okay. And if you like how the theme looks, so notice it's applied to everything. Nice. Let me actually change this so we could do some variants. Let's do my favorite, or not my favorite, let's just do Wisp here. There we go, and this one shows some variants. You can see that for each of the slide layouts, it has specific, there we go, looks to it. Okay, but if you like the look of the theme, but maybe you don't like the colors or even the font style, you could always change it in the variants group. So if you click on the drop down for variants, there's specific color palettes you could choose. If you hover over each one, you could see a preview of each. Like, I like this one with the blue warm. Go ahead and select it. And again, it applies to all of the slides in your PowerPoint. When we click on the drop down again for the variants, you could even do fonts. You could change the fonts of your entire slideshow very quickly. I typically like using either Arial or Calibri. Calibri feels nice. There we go. And there's even more you could choose from: effects, backgrounds. Let me choose one of the background styles. This will change the entire background of everything. I'll keep it like this. I don't want to keep on blasting you guys with white screens and black screens. Okay. But these are very quick themes you could do, and look, it already starts making everything look pretty much nicer. If there's still things you want to change, let's go to our Home tab. Notice every time I go into the placeholders, I could still use my font group to change things, like maybe I want this to be bolder. I could select the text, make it bold. I could go to these bullet points. If I think it's too small, I could always select all of them, or you could just select the placeholder itself by selecting anywhere on its borders. So again, your cursor will have that little plus sign with the arrows. You could click it, and notice you don't get an insertion point in here because it's selecting just this entire placeholder. Anything you edit with the font will affect all of this placeholder, everything in there. So for example, if I want to change the text size, Home tab, font group, we'll find a font size. Usually it's recommended to have it 24 or 28 point font. Let's do 24. There we go. And notice it changes. And I could go over here, do the same to this placeholder. Perfect. And if you need to italicize anything, you could still do so. Just again, be careful of what you are selecting to change, and for the font group, and so on. Okay, one last thing. Notice in your Home tab, all the way on the left in the clipboard group, you still have a format painter. So it will still work just like how you did with Word document, just with placeholders now. How I like to say to students is PowerPoint is basically just a fancier and cooler Word document. All right, so we've gone ahead and added text and we've made it look somewhat nice. Let's go ahead and actually start adding images. Okay, so for adding images, I'm going to have you do something very specific to help you with your project, but I'll show some other ways in which you could add images to your PowerPoint. I'm going to pull up a Google tab. There we go. So you could go to, if you want to follow along, go to your Google Images. So let me actually go up here, google.com. There we go. And then up here on the top right, the images button, go ahead and select it. There we go. And we could, anything that we search with will pop up as images. So let's say I need some images for my PowerPoint. Maybe I need some images of cats. So let's go ahead and type cats. There we go. And we have a bunch of cat photos here. Let me find one. So go ahead, find one that you like. I'm going to select this one with these 3 kittens. And once you bring it up, it'll come up as a little tab here. Go ahead and right click on the image itself. And depending on your device, this may be different, but usually you'll have an option for save image as. Go ahead and select it. There we go. And save it anywhere to your computer. I'm going to rename this just because this is way too big. Actually, this won't download as I want. Make sure you look at the save as type. If it does not say something along the lines of PNG, JPEG, JPG, you don't want to use that. Let's exit here just because they add some, it'll be a lot more difficult to manage. Let me select this one. Oh, this is so cute. Let me right click, save image as, and it's still doing the same thing. I'm going to do some searching for an image. You go find one as well, and we'll come back to include it. Okay, actually this one works. All right, but you don't have to do anything with the name itself unless you would like to identify it. But let's go ahead and save it to our device. Remember where you saved it. I put mine to my downloads. And let's go ahead. So anytime you have images on your computer and you want to include it to your PowerPoint, first select the slide you want to add the image to. For example, I have a cat image, so I'm going to do it in my animals, things I like. Then you're going to go to your Insert tab, and there's going to be a group called Images. There's a drop down for pictures. Go ahead and click on the drop down, and there's different options. Choose the one that says this device, and when you select it, it's going to take you to your device's file system. So in my case, the File Explorer, and you're going to choose the image you want to bring in. Go ahead and select the image you want. So in my case, it's the cat, and click Insert. There we go. And the image is instantly included into your PowerPoint. Now, the problem is it's taking up way too much space, which is perfectly fine. Just like how you have with your Word document, images act as like their own little objects. You could select it. There we go. You'll get the border around it. And notice you have the little white dots on the sides and corners. I always suggest using the corners to keep it proportional. Don't do anything yet. I'm going to show you what happens when I do the side. So let's say if I just choose the side to make it smaller, notice that the image gets very squished. And if I try to fix it by getting the top edge and making it smaller, it could still look very odd. Let me do Control Z, Control Z. There we go. I always suggest using the corners because it will keep everything nice and proportional and not looking off. There we go. So I've made it smaller, and then I could drag it up here to fit nicely. There we go. And you could do that for all of the other slides. You could go ahead and keep adding images, moving them around as you want, and making it look nice. One thing I do want to show you is notice when I keep moving the image around, there's these blank, there we go, faint red lines that appear. Those lines are trying to line up with certain placeholders or parts of the slide. So notice if I want it to be very centered to everything, there we go, there's a big line going across. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a big line going across. That means it's being centered. And then if I try putting it in the very middle, it's kind of hard to do. There we go. Now there's like a big crosshair, and now this image is exactly centered to the slide itself. If I want it lined up with this placeholder, there we go. There's also linings up for that. So that helps, especially if you want to line up two images. It just has to be lined up with the edges as well. Okay. So that's what you could do with inserting images. For your PowerPoint in the project, you will have to use the ones I have you download. But of course, let me go to slide 3 to show this. You could still go to the Insert tab, Images group, click on the drop down for Pictures, and you could use either the stock images or online pictures option to look for images through PowerPoint. So let me click stock images. There we go. And you could search for anything you want. Maybe, like in this case, let me find a pizza. So let me type in pizza, click enter, and let's find a pizza we want. I apologize if I'm making any of you hungry. Here, let's just do this one since it feels a little more pizza-like. Let me go ahead and select it. Notice that there's a little check mark on it. And then you could click insert. Notice you could select multiple. It'll include all of it in the single slide. All right. But let me just deselect those so I only have this one with the check mark. And let's click insert. And it's loading in. There we go. And then I could just resize it to how I need. Okay. Editing the placement and resizing of images is not only dedicated to the pictures. You could still do the same for placeholders. So notice I could select this placeholder here, click around on the border to ensure I'm selecting the placeholder, and notice it also has the white dots on the corners and sides. And I could shrink this to make it look like it's on the other side of the screen, and I can move my image here. So now it's going back and forth when we look at the slideshow master. So you could also edit this as well. All right, so there's plenty of fun to have with images. One last thing. So let me actually present this real quick. Let me do slideshow and from the beginning. Notice when I do from the beginning, it'll start at slide 1. If I do from my current slide, it'll start in the current one I've selected, so be careful. But let me do from beginning. There we go. And now we have a nice slideshow going. This is my presentation, things I like. And when I click, notice it automatically just goes to the next slide, and we have a nice presentation here with I like cats, dogs, and bats. Here's a picture of a cat. And I like pizza, tacos, and a Wendy's Frosty. All right, let me click one more time to exit back, or you could use the escape key. But notice everything just kind of just went to the next slide. There wasn't any grand showing. If you want to get those nice visuals where slides fade into one another or even flip like a book, that's something called a transition. So first, make sure you select the very first slide. There's something I want to show with this. And go to your transitions tab up here in the ribbon. So transitions work from slide to slide. We'll get into the difference between transitions and animations when it comes to chapter 3. But right now, just focus on transitions. This will do the cool thing between slide to slide. More specifically, transitions are how we go into the current slide. So whatever I choose for slide 1, that's how it'll start off with. Your transitions will be up here at the top. So there's a lot of different ones you could choose from, such as the fade is a typical one people use. If you want to see more, click on the drop down. There's a lot of more fun stuff you could do. Even there's one that looks like a curtain that you could mess around with. But let's just do the fade for now. There we go. And you can see a quick preview of how it would look. Here in the transitions, you'll see a preview button, and when I click it, it gives you an idea of what would happen if I start the slideshow. And notice over here in the slide master, you see a little star symbol. That means a transition was applied to the slide. Now notice it's not applied to the rest of the slides because we only selected slide 1 and did it. Now it would be okay to go to each slide and keep selecting fade, but what if you had a slideshow of 15 or 30? The quickest way to apply all of the same transition to everything in your slideshow is select the one with the transition you want to copy to everything. Then go all the way to the left. There's a group called timing. I will explain some other things here. But there's a button called apply to all. And when you click it, it'll apply this transition that you formatted to all of your slides. So now see in your slide master, there's a little star next to each one of these. So now when I present this from the beginning, so go ahead and click on the slideshow tab, do from beginning. There you go. Notice it fades into this first slide, and when I click down on my mouse, it goes to the next, and when I click over, it fades to the next one, and when I click, it's just going to be a black screen. Let me click again to exit. There we go. But again, there's a lot more you could do with transitions. For example, I could make them all vary. Let me select 2, and instead of a fade, let me do a push. So now when I start this from the beginning, the first slide fades in, but when I click on the mouse, this one pushes it up. Let me go ahead and click escape. Okay. Let's go back to the transitions tab. If I didn't want the push to go up, maybe I wanted it to go in another direction, that's completely fine. Notice in the transitions group here on the right, there's a button called Effect Options. When you select it, some transitions have specific ways to edit the effect. So notice right now from the bottom is selected, so it's pushing from the bottom to the top. You could do from the left, from the right, from the top, so top to bottom. Let me choose from left, and when I try presenting this again, there we go. The first one fades in, but the next one is going to push from the left. Let me click escape. Okay. One other cool thing you can do with transitions is indicate how long you want it to be. Notice here in the timing group, this is specific ways in which you could also edit the transition. The duration means how long the transition lasts. This goes by seconds. So right now it says 1 second. If I want it shorter, I have to do 0.5. So that would be half a second. So if I present this, it fades in slowly on the first slide, but now it pushes in fast in the next slide. Let me click escape. There we go. So just be careful with that duration. I see some students accidentally put in whole hours for this based on thinking that it was a different time measurement. It goes by seconds. Again, be careful. Otherwise, it will take a long time to go from transition to transition. Okay. Notice you could include sounds to your slides, something you could explore, as well as always make sure you have the check mark for on mouse click. Otherwise, when you click the mouse, so if it's not checked and you click the mouse, it's not going to move. So be careful. Make sure it's always clicked. Okay. But those are some fun things you could do with your slideshow. And honestly, this would be pretty okay enough to present to someone. So something really nice to present. May not be the fanciest, but at least you'll get the job done. Okay, so just have some fun with this. I know the actual projects can be very rigid, but have some fun, and you will have an opportunity to mess around with this in your final project if you choose to. Okay, but if you have, one last thing, let's save this document. Saving is still the same. Go ahead and click on the little cartridge at the top left or do Control S. So that's creating a PowerPoint, how to start off. In the next couple of chapters, we're going to show you some skills to make this really pop, to make your PowerPoint really look professional or cool, depending on how you want it. Of course, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to contact me, send me a message. My emails are open. All right, thank you.